It's taken us time. Here it is. Hi, folks. You're at Tacitus Day at your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast as you're driving along in your car, your truck, or in public transport. In this essay, I'd like to talk about what are the agents, what are the forces, what are the things that bind us as a community, and what are these forces of social cohesion, if I use that term broadly, and how can we understand their role in bringing about social cohesion. Now, social cohesion is something that typically occurs organically. It's people of racial homogeneity, religious homogeneity, and cultural, spiritual type homogeneity. These are the wider factors, but also similarly shared experiences, and particularly in the entertainment age, and really this didn't begin, I think, until modern communications, maybe beginning with the radio, I suppose, or the wireless, or the crystal set, as they used to call it many decades ago. And I remember my grandparents had a radio, and it had the radio had to reach a certain temperature before it worked, so they'd switch it on, plugged into the electrical power point, they'd switch it on, but it would take 10 minutes before the thing had warmed up enough that it would begin to work. And the TVs actually weren't, the earlier TVs, even until the sort of the late 70s or something. Certainly my experience was the TV sort of had a bit of a warm-up thing. You didn't just switch them on and there they were. So the entertainment factor, I suppose, has changed the forces that bind us. But the number of experiences anybody would have based on the limited travel, this is before mass transport, rail and then roads and motor vehicles and so on, the amount of experiences they have was very limited. It was in their local area, their village, with the same people, interacting with really the same things every day. The variance factor, the variability was fairly limited. And if someone, even someone of your own, race, religion, culture, and so on, came into the village from outside, it was a huge talking point. It was like, wow, this is an outsider. And so the idea of shared experiences with a limited scope was a big factor of social cohesion. Now, this social cohesion in that sense began to not so much break down necessarily, but change its texture with the idea of people moving around, able to move around, moving out of their village or their area, people moving from rural areas to cities, cars, radios, televisions, and so on. This is, of course, continued on where we have now internet and masses of different sorts of entertainment where people can make a choice. Now, the choice that people used to have was fairly limited, and this in turn resulted in a narrower pool of shared experiences. For example, I remember when as a kid, I came home from school, the only things you could see were cartoon reruns on television. So it's reruns of things like mostly American shows, Bugs Bunny and the Flintstones, that sort of stuff. And beyond that, you'd have things like Gilligan's Island, for example, would be a thing. Again, the reruns of the reruns, or I don't know, I Love Lucy, which I never really took to as a kid. I thought Gilligan's Island was silly funny, and there's a few other things. So and there was the news. Now the news was a very sober affair back in the day. They stuck rigidly to facts. There were current affairs shows. They went off on the tangent of editorial, but the news and they were pretty scrupulous in those days about getting the facts right. And as were the newspapers, and so this is pre-internet, of course. So all the news organisations wanted to get cutting edge news, like be the first to print the something, but they also all wanted to be journals of record. If they said it, it was absolutely 100% bankable truth. This, of course, has completely changed. So as the range of experiences, so that the range of experiences was quite narrow. Everyone at school that I knew was watching the same TV programs. We were listening to the same music on, the radio, like the top 100 or the top 40 songs, that sort of stuff. There were a range of bands and musical groups that were big in the day, and they were, everyone knew of them and listened to their songs. Somebody would start off with the first few words of a song at school, and everyone else in the class or where it would strike up, and we'd all know the words, and we'd all know the tune and the melody, these sorts of things. Now, this has created a set of shared experiences. Was that an artificial sense of community, though? Was it simply the narrowness of the shared experience range, or the range of shared experience, thus the narrow range? And was that what was creating social cohesion, or was it racial homogeneity, religious homogeneity? Because everybody, certainly at, I'm thinking of one school now, it was 99.9% white, 99.9% Christian. Again, there was huge homogeneity. Now, there were, however, running parallel to that, these shared experiences I mentioned. Now, how much of the social cohesion was the racial and religious homogeneity? Because it meant that again, the behaviour was within a certain range. There was, if you didn't stray outside of, I mean, some people may ask questions, but you didn't stray outside of this. Similarly, in a political sense, the political discourse was, certainly compared to today, very honest, very forthright. And because the idea of controlling what a politician said, politicians still would do unscripted town hall meetings, and it was interesting to watch, politician talking without any script, just going off the top of the head. So they had to be reasonably across the facts and figures. But the idea that they would get caught with gotcha questions and so on that the media try and use today, or entrapment questions, it was quite a different discourse and interaction. There was a view that we all more or less had the same values. We all wanted a better Australia. We all wanted better laws that would help Australia do better. We all were committed to improving the lives of the people, and so on and so forth. So the discourse was narrow. These two are shared experiences, but not simply shared experiences, but shared beliefs. So how much was, irrespective of which way you go, it was all organic or natural. Sure, there were nudging, I guess, here and there, but it was all organic or natural. You had to actually like the song for it to be a number one song. A crap song wasn't going to get to, I look back and something like, oh, you mean that made it to number one? But the point is, enough people bought it, and that was it. The same with whether it be a best-selling book or popular newspaper stories, popular TV programs. There was an organic nature to it. It was not being forced on us in any sense that I could recognise. Now, again, you could say, well, the limited choice was tantamount to something being forced on you, but I'm not sure I buy that. So where does social cohesion come from? Now, today, of course, it's quite different. I can choose, I can select news and views and opinions that I want to hear. I don't have to listen to what other people are saying. I like anyone on the internet. I can decide, well, I like this or that news source, or this or that analysis of the news, and so that's what I'm going to listen to. That's what I'm going to watch, and I can simply filter out things that I don't like or don't agree with, or don't represent what I think is the reality of things today. Now I can say, well, I want to know what the other side are doing. I want to know what the opposition's thinking, and then I might tune in. But none do that, in fact. But the idea of social cohesion is I can go wherever I want. I get in the car and drive wherever I want, whenever I want. I can listen to whatever I want. I can look at whatever news I want, and so I can subdivide and subdivide myself from the rest of the population. and I can does that cause lack of social cohesion? Given that the shared experience factor, which you think is an issue of social cohesion, that is diluted. Now, you can see from the other side why the globalists are so desperate that the news source should only be the news they control, the viewpoints they want to push, the lies they want to tell. And lies are, I mean, given the globalist project is a disaster from top to bottom and left to right, it's essential they control the narrative, essential, as they see it, that they control the narrative so they can tell any lies they want without it being questioned or refuted or exposed. And control the narrative is absolutely essential if you're going to be telling lots of lies. But it also says the globalist project, if it can only survive on telling lots of lies and control of a narrative, prevent any questions, then how good is that globalist project? It has to be crap, but definitely nobody wants it. So part of social cohesion is people having more or less common agreement on many things, and whether it's agreement on behaviours or agreement on how things should be done, how decisions should be reached, agreement on how we're governed or policed and so on. There has to be an organic level to that, so it occurs quite naturally in the majority of people. 99% of the people will say that burglary and robbery or murder is wrong. So these sorts of things. So we can agree on basic things, 10 Commandment type level, and then we go further from that and agree at things that maybe a little bit more esoteric and not necessarily fully mainstream. Or common agreement across the board. So we need to have a look at what brings social cohesion in, and how, and in absence of organic agreement and organic cohesion, can cohesion be forced? Now, we're looking at the Soviet, say the Soviet communist view on cohesion. Say with the later Marxist, late 1800s type Marxist view of workers of the world unite. So if you're a worker, that is the common factor for cohesion in the Marxist thought. So it doesn't matter what country you come from, what religion you come from, what social system you come from, whether it's a basket case third world thing or an advanced industrial, it doesn't matter. You're united by, so the communists would argue, you're united by one factor, which is you're all workers. Therefore, nothing else matters. You're all workers. Now, if you look at the Soviet Union or any communist, communist China, it doesn't matter, East European communism, the view was that social cohesion should come through shared ideology. If you all ideologically hold the same view, then that is the social cohesion that binds you. Any realities, such as different languages, customs, habits, behaviors, and so on, that's all irrelevant. Instead, we can not organically deliver, but we can force social cohesion on people by demanding they all conform to the same ideology, and we'll put you in prison or even kill you if you won't go along with this. So that's hardly an organic, natural form of social cohesion. Now, what surprised me is that 90% of the population of the Soviet Union had known nothing but communism, much of it brutally enforced. But 90% of them know nothing but communism. But when the communist state collapsed, 2/3 of the people claim to have hated communism. Every day they despised the drudgery, they despised the lies, they despised the threats of the knock on the door at 2 o'clock in the morning and the secret police dragging you off. They despised the arbitrary arrest. They despised the arbitrary politicized courts. They despised the political commissars. They despised the lies they were told in the media and at school and so on. And they really had no truck with it. Again, people had known nothing but communism. They didn't take to this idea of the enforced homogeneity via ideology. So in absence of organic agents at work, there was no social cohesion. And I was surprised by the extent of it. And the same goes again for Eastern Europe and so on, even peasant societies like Cambodia. So So we can conclude that if homogeneity is to be achieved, there needs to be a very high level of organic, naturalness, if you will, about it. You can have many or few diversions, such as the amount of news channels or entertainment you get to see or hear. That can still happen, but the idea that the primacy is the organic nature of it, which would suggest, by extension, that there is common agreement. Now, with ideology, is that with that idea that is the binding agent, then all reality, all organic naturalness to the binding agents, that's disregarded. We'll force you at the point of a fucking gun, if we have to all agree to the ideology, and that we will then say that now is the binding agent, and nothing else will matter. So you can be from any race, any religion, any any attitude, any behaviour, any sense of propriety, anything at all. It doesn't matter as long as you're conforming to the ideology. We have social cohesion. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't think it is social cohesion, but effectively that's what the globalists are attempting to do. If everyone's on board with the ideology, we therefore have cohesion. Or without everyone being on board of the ideology, we do not have cohesion. And as long as if we can impose the ideology brutally enough, for long enough, and with heavy-handed enforcement, then we can create the sort of conformity that we need for the globalist project. I don't think it's going to work. I think that's flawed from the outset, that thinking. Being with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.